a visionary in the blockchain space. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Sam Bettanally to the stage, and he will enlightening us on the EVM rollup to realize the internet scale Ethereum. Sam, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thanks for that great talk, Laura. It's actually quite a great segue into what I'm going to be talking about today. So my name's Sam Bettanally. I'm here from Rise Labs, where our goal is to realize internet scale Ethereum. It's a bit vague, but we'll get into the details. As early as the Ethereum white paper, it showed a lot of promise to revolutionize how we interact on the web. Sorry, I just got to work out how to do this clicker. Cool. So Web3 stands to onboard over 1 billion users, and it showed this promise back at the white paper. So today I want to take a look at where we are today and really look into the details of what the future might look like. So across these sectors, finance, entertainment, business, and infrastructure, there's, like I said, standing on board over 1 billion users. But where are we today? What has product market fit? I think this is a really good way to look at to talk about this problem. In my eyes, there's two verticals, two sectors. One is stablecoins. I think this one's undeniable. Tether's reached $100 billion in the previous weeks, and by various metrics, it's one of the most successful products, businesses in the world, not just in crypto. The second is DeFi. DeFi is the golden goose of Web3. It's really been the incubation hub of what's possible with Web3. So these are brilliant, but we were promised more. So where are the mass consumer applications? Where is the WhatsApp and Instagram of Web3? Where's the Minecrafts of Web3? And the problem is that technology leads innovation. I think AI is an interesting sector that has a lot of parallels with Web3. In AI, if it wasn't thanks to the gaming market, investing the R&D into graphics cards, we wouldn't have AI as it is today. So I think the PMF markets that I talked about in the previous slide are going to be the catalysts that unlock the future, the next wave of crypto applications, and really unlock these mass consumer applications we've been talking about for a long time. So what's that look like in Ethereum? This is the Ethereum ecosystem at a glance, and apologies for all the ecosystems I couldn't fit on the slide. It would be far too cluttered if I tried. But the crux of it is, Ethereum today is an ecosystem of ecosystems. So within each of these ecosystems, there's a variety of rollups, and then at the higher level, there are individual ecosystems. Now, one problem, and this, in fact, this is, I think this is great and to see the level of innovation. There's tens and soon to be hundreds of rollups, and it's really been the test bed for what's possible in the modular thesis. One problem is that between these ecosystems, there's basically no interoperability at an atomic or synchronous level, that you can't interact between the different rollups. And then within some of these ecosystems, the vast majority of these ecosystems, you can't interact within the ecosystem. So if you're on Base, you can't access liquidity on Optimism, for instance. Polygon Aglayer, one exception that's putting a lot of effort into that particular problem. So let's look at this from the perspective of builder. I don't know if you can see a little guy down the bottom here. His name's Min. Min is an entrepreneur. He's a founder. He's just raised capital, and he's looking to launch a social app, and he wants to support in the future. He wants to support 10,000 to 100,000 users. Let's take a look at what his options are. So option one, he can join a network. He can deploy an Arbitrum, he can deploy an Optimism. But he's quickly going to run into a couple of problems. First is the performance. You simply can't support that quantity of users on any rollup today. He'll hit those walls very quickly. And the second is a coordination problem. So Min's launching a product, he's going to put so much effort into BD and building out this network, and then he's offloading a portion of that value, that network effect, to another network. And this is somewhat counterintuitive, but I've heard this problem from various builders in Min's shoes. So option two is he can create a network, so he can deploy a new rollup. Similarly, he's going to run into the same problem. There's no rollup infrastructure or stack today that can support the sort of TPS that Min needs. And then secondly, he's got what I call the bootstrapping problem. He'll run into that. So this is the problem, that he'd have to launch a variety of different products on his chain to get the real benefits of Web3. So DEXs, lending markets, etc., and then a whole bunch of off-chain infrastructure as well. So neither of these options are great for Min. Is there a solution? And I think there is. And it's a very tough problem, but there is definitely a solution. There's a lot of hope. So I think we can solve this by tackling two problems. One is fragmentation. If we can solve fragmentation, it means Min can deploy his blockchain and maintain that value of the network effect that he's building. And then simply the engineering problem of performance. We need to solve that somehow in the rollup ecosystems. So let's start with fragmentation. This is a quote from Justin Drake from the Ethereum Foundation. For the sake of the industry, don't fight on sequencing. I think this is a really nuanced quote. What Justin's alluding to here is a common misconception in crypto, in Web3, that rollups generate their value from sequencing, when this in fact isn't the case. They don't do any MEV extraction or anything at the sequencing layer. They actually generate their value from the execution layer. So what Justin Drake is promoting here is a separation between execution and sequencing. He thinks that rollups should be hyper-focused on execution and then potentially offload or collaborate on the sequencing front. Now, why this is interesting for fragmentation is because it really simplifies shared sequencing. So shared sequencing is a concept. There's been a lot of hype about this, and it's backed. It can provide a lot of great things to the networks. But the crux of the technology, I think the most important part of the technology, is that if you have two rollups, shared sequencing lets you interleave transactions, which means, in a simplified perspective, that if you're on rollup A and you want to access liquidity on rollup B, or you want to participate in a Web3 game or have cross-rollup interactions, that is enabled because you can have this atomic interaction. So just a quick shout out to some teams that are doing some great work in this space. Espresso, Astria, and Polygon Aglayer. They're really they're pioneers of this space at the moment. However, we've got one problem with how the approach of some of these teams do at the moment, and that's that they're creating another semi-gated community. That if you're a developer, say you're Min, and you want to deploy in an ecosystem, you've kind of got to take a bet that, do I go with Polygon Aglayer or do I go with Espresso? And you've got to hope that they're going to be the winner of the arms race of shared sequencing. So builders don't want to commit. So that's led to a demand for an open sequencing protocol, and a protocol that is future-proof, and the term enshrined sequencing has come up quite a bit. This is an active space, really interesting space to be involved in. And so it's a little bit covered by the light there, but I think the leaders in this space right now is really the Ethereum Foundation. Justin Drake's heading this off, and there's a lot of great teams collaborating on what's called base sequencing. And so that's bringing sequencing to the L1. I'm not going into the details there, but I think it's really promising, and I think the crux of it is that we can solve fragmentation. So that's great. Let's look at where Min's at now. So Min can now deploy his own network, and he solved the bootstrapping problem because he can access infrastructure on different chains in an atomic manner. The next problem is performance. How do we solve performance? So really interesting, the timing of this is super interesting. So for most of the life of DA, the bottleneck for performance has been data availability. But thanks to the growth of external DA layers like Celestia, Avail, NearDA, etc., and Dankun to some degree, this is no longer the bottleneck. In fact, the new frontier is execution. What I mean by this is processing the transactions fast enough. That is now what's going to slow things down. So what's the solution? Well, fortunately, there's been a suite of high-performance L1s that have put heaps of R&D into this problem. So we've got a lot to learn from them. The first thing we can learn is that we have to rethink the architecture of rollups. So it's a little bit technical, but today, full nodes, they process every single transaction that comes through the network. This doesn't actually help the network much at all, really, and doesn't help the trustlessness of the network. So you can remove that dependency from nodes, which lets you maintain low-cost nodes, but a really high-performant executor to process the transaction. And it's quite similar to Solana and Moda, for instance. The next thing we have to solve is execution optimizations. So rollups today were mostly based on Geth. And Geth was designed to support about 30 transactions per second, because that's what Ethereum needs. That's all it needs. So what that means is it opened up a lot of room for optimizations, just purely from an engineering perspective. And this is actually a really interesting design space that's, I think, is going to get quite a bit of attention this year and in the coming years. Cool. So where does that leave us? Min's he can create a network, he can have the performance he needs, and he's solved the bootstrapping and ownership problems. I think this is brilliant. And what I'm alluding to here is if we can solve these problems, we're going to unlock the next wave of Web3 applications. Thanks a lot. Please get in touch if you're building app chains or anything interesting that might need high performance. Please hit us up. And if you're a developer or researcher that's interested in this space and might want to get involved with the team, please, reach out. Nice one. Thank you. Oh, and finally, I just want to give a shout out to Calibre. We're incubated through the Calibre team. They've been huge support, so I highly recommend it. Hit up Calibre. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Such an interesting talk.